Your person is extremely angry with you right now, but this time, the reason is completely different. They have found out about the promise you broke. Not a small promise, not something easy to forget, but a promise that once made them feel safe with you. They trusted your words. They believed your intentions. They thought when you said, "I'll always be there," you truly meant it. But now, reality feels different. They watched your actions change. Your messages became shorter. Your presence became weaker. Your attention slowly disappeared. At first, they made excuses for you. Maybe you were busy. Maybe life was difficult. Maybe you were silently fighting battles you never talked about. But deep inside, they felt something was changing. And then, the truth arrived. They realized it wasn't distance. It wasn't bad timing. It was choice. You chose silence. You chose avoidance. And somehow, they were left carrying the confusion alone. That realization hurt more than anything. Because disappointment from a stranger is easy. But disappointment from someone you trusted? That cuts differently. Now they keep asking themselves, was I ever truly important to you? Did your promises mean anything? Or was I just a chapter you were planning to leave behind? Their anger is loud, but their heartbreak is even louder. They replay every late-night conversation. Every moment you said, "Trust me." Every time you looked into their eyes and made them believe they mattered. Now those memories feel heavy, because the same words that once gave comfort now feel like unanswered questions. They are angry because they gave you loyalty. They are angry because they defended you, even when others doubted you. They are angry because they gave their heart honestly, and now they feel like they were standing alone the entire time. But here is the truth. People only get this angry when something truly mattered. If you meant nothing, they would have walked away in silence. But they didn't. Because a part of them still cares. A part of them still waits. A part of them still hopes that maybe there is an explanation they haven't heard yet. That maybe this story is not ending the way it looks. They may act cold now. They may ignore your messages. They may pretend they no longer care. But behind that silence is a storm. A storm of memories. A storm of questions. A storm of emotions they are trying hard not to show. At night, when everything becomes quiet, your name still crosses their mind. Not because they want drama, but because unfinished feelings never leave quietly. They remember your smile, your voice, the comfort of your presence. And that makes forgiveness harder, because love and pain are standing in the same place. Part of them wants to shut the door forever. Part of them wants to hear your side. And another part secretly wishes you would come back with honesty. Not excuses. Not sweet lies. Not empty apologies. Just truth, because truth may hurt, but confusion destroys much more. They do not need perfection from you. They need clarity. They need to know whether what you shared was real, or just beautiful words spoken at the right time. Right now, they are standing between pride and emotion. Their pride says, "Walk away." Their heart whispers, "Maybe one honest conversation can still save this." And that is where everything stands. If you still care, silence is no longer enough. Because sometimes, love does not end because feelings disappear. It ends because nobody had the courage to speak the truth. So yes, they are very angry, very disappointed, very hurt. But sometimes anger is not the end of love. Sometimes it is proof that love was real enough to leave a scar. Now the real question is, will you let your silence become the reason they stop believing in you forever? Days are passing, but their anger has not faded. In fact, silence has made everything louder. They still check their phone sometimes, not because they want to, but because a part of them keeps expecting your name to appear. One message. One honest explanation. One sign that they were not wrong for believing in you. But nothing comes. And every moment of silence feels like another answer. They begin to tell themselves, maybe I cared more. Maybe I stayed longer than I should have. Maybe I was fighting for someone who had already let go. Those thoughts hurt, because no one wants to feel like they were the only one trying. They remember the small things, the way you used to notice their silence. The way you once said, "I understand you," even when you say nothing. Now the same person feels like a stranger. And that change is impossible to ignore. They ask themselves if they were too blind, or if you simply changed without warning. Sometimes anger turns into sadness. Sometimes sadness turns into numbness. And that numbness is the most dangerous part. Because when someone stops feeling, they also stop hoping. Right now, they are standing very close to that point. They are tired of guessing, tired of waiting, tired of defending someone who never came forward with the truth. Their friends tell them, let it go. Their mind agrees, but their heart is still holding on to old versions of you. The version that cared, the version that stayed, the version that made promises that felt real. That is why moving on feels so difficult. They are not trying to forget a person. They are trying to let go of the future they imagined with that person. And that kind of goodbye is never easy. Sometimes they get angry all over again. Not because of what happened, but because of how easily it seems you stayed silent. As if losing them was not something worth fighting for. That thought breaks them more than they admit. Because deep down, everyone wants to feel chosen. Everyone wants to know they mattered enough for someone to stay. They wanted that from you. They expected that from you. And now they are left questioning everything. Was it love? Was it convenience? Was it real, or just temporary comfort disguised as forever? These questions follow them everywhere. Even in happy moments, even in busy days, even when they try to move forward. Because unresolved emotions do not disappear. They wait for closure. They wait for truth. They wait for the moment someone finally says, this is what really happened. And until that moment comes, peace feels impossible. But here is something you may not realize. They are not asking for perfection. They are asking for honesty. Even a painful truth feels lighter than beautiful confusion. Even a difficult goodbye feels kinder than endless uncertainty. Because closure is not always about staying together. Sometimes, it is simply about knowing that what happened was real. And right now, that is all they want. Not promises, not grand gestures, just honesty. Because if silence continues, the anger will slowly turn into acceptance. And once acceptance arrives, people stop looking back. That is the moment everything truly changes. So before that happens, before distance becomes permanent, before memories turn into lessons instead of love, ask yourself, are you protecting your ego or losing someone who once would have done anything for you? Now something inside them is changing. The anger is still there, but it no longer burns the same way. It is quieter now, colder, more dangerous, because when pain stops shouting, it starts turning into acceptance. And acceptance is where people begin to let go. They still think about you, yes, but now, instead of waiting for your message, they are learning how to live without it. Instead of hoping for your explanation, they are creating their own closure. And that should scare you, because when someone stops asking questions, it usually means they have stopped expecting answers. At first, they wanted to fight for this connection. They wanted to understand. They wanted to fix things. They wanted proof that losing them would matter to you. But time has a strange way of changing emotions. What once felt like desperation slowly becomes distance. What once felt like heartbreak slowly becomes silence. And silence can be the final goodbye. They still remember the version of you they loved. That version still lives in their mind. The one who made them laugh. The one who stayed up late just to talk. The one who made ordinary days feel special. But memories are dangerous because they make people miss what no longer exists. And they are starting to realize that. They are starting to ask, am I missing the person or just the feeling they gave me? That question changes everything. Because sometimes we do not miss people. We miss how they made us feel. Safe. Chosen. Important. Loved. And when that illusion breaks, reality becomes impossible to ignore. They are no longer crying every night. They are no longer checking every notification with hope. They are no longer trying to decode your silence. Instead, they are becoming stronger without you, not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice. Pain forced growth. Disappointment taught boundaries. And your silence taught them the difference between words and actions. That lesson will stay with them forever. Now, when they look at you, they no longer see only love. They see the unanswered questions, the broken trust, the version of themselves that kept waiting too long. And that changes the heart. It makes love harder. It makes forgiveness slower. It makes goodbye feel necessary. Still, there is a small part of them that wonders, what if they come back? What if they finally tell the truth? What if everything I believed was not a lie? That small part still exists, but it is getting quieter every day. And if you wait too long, you may return to a heart that has already learned how to close its doors. Because love has timing. Apologies have timing. Truth has timing. And not everything survives delay. Some people do not leave because they stopped loving. They leave because staying started hurting more than leaving. That is where they are now, standing between the final chance and the final goodbye. They are not begging anymore. They are not chasing anymore. They are simply watching to see if your actions will finally match your words. Watching to see if your silence means fear or indifference. Watching to decide whether this story deserves one last chapter or a permanent ending. And trust me, once someone reaches peace without you, coming back becomes much harder. Because people can forgive pain, but they rarely forget how alone they felt. So if your heart still holds something real, do not wait for the perfect moment. Perfect moments rarely come. What matters is courage. The courage to speak. The courage to admit. The courage to fight for someone before they stop waiting. Because sometimes, the person you think will always stay is the one quietly learning how to leave forever. And now, the silence between you has become louder than any argument ever could. They no longer ask where you are. They no longer wonder why you changed. They no longer chase answers that never came. Because something inside them finally understood. Not every silence is confusion. Sometimes, silence is the answer. That realization hurt, more than the broken promises, more than the late replies, more than every excuse that never felt complete. Because accepting the truth means accepting that maybe you knew exactly what you were doing. And maybe that is what hurts the most. They used to defend you. Even when people warned them. Even when red flags appeared. Even when their own heart whispered, "This feels different." They still chose you. They chose patience. They chose understanding. They chose loyalty. And now they sit with the painful question. Why did I fight so hard for someone who stayed so comfortable losing me? That question changes a person. It makes them colder, wiser, more careful. It teaches them that love without effort is just emotional exhaustion wearing a beautiful name. They are learning that now. Slowly, painfully, but powerfully. They no longer want words. They have heard enough promises. They have listened to enough apologies that arrived too late. Now they only believe actions. Because actions do not confuse. Actions do not disappear at midnight. Actions do not leave someone questioning their worth. Words can be beautiful, but consistency is what makes them real. And that consistency was missing. That is why trust cracked. That is why love became heavy. That is why your name now carries both comfort and disappointment. Some nights, they still miss you. Not the pain, not the confusion. Just you, or maybe the version of you they thought was real. They miss the connection, the laughter, the feeling of being understood without needing too many words. But missing someone is not always a reason to return. Sometimes, it is simply proof that something mattered, and sometimes, love means accepting that something mattered, even if it was never meant to stay. That lesson is changing them. They are becoming quieter. Not because they are weak, but because peace has become more important than proving how much they cared. They are learning to protect their energy. To stop explaining themselves. To stop begging for clarity from people who benefit from confusion. That growth is beautiful, but it also means something dangerous for you. Because once someone learns how to love themselves more than the chaos, they stop settling for emotional uncertainty. And when that happens, they stop waiting. Completely. No secret hope, no late-night what-ifs, no silent prayers for things to return. Just acceptance. Clean. Quiet. Final. You may think there is still time. You may believe they will always understand. You may assume they will always be there because they always were. But love has limits. Even the softest heart gets tired. Even the most patient soul reaches a point where peace becomes the only priority. They are close to that point. Very close. And if they cross it, they may still care about you, but they will no longer choose you. That is the difference. Love can remain. Access can disappear. Feelings can stay. Doors can close. And once someone closes a door after giving too many chances, they rarely open it the same way again. So ask yourself honestly, are you waiting because you are unsure, or because you think they will wait forever? Because forever is a dangerous assumption. Sometimes, the strongest goodbye comes from the person who said nothing at all, and simply never returned. And now they are standing at the edge of something final. Not anger. Not sadness. Something much deeper. Detachment. And detachment is dangerous because it does not scream. It arrives quietly. No fights. No long messages. No dramatic endings. Just a slow disappearance of emotion. That is where they are now. They still remember everything. The promises, the late-night talks, the dreams you both built together. But memories no longer hold them the same way. What once made them cry, now only makes them pause. What once felt impossible to lose, now feels like something they are learning to release. That shift is powerful. Because when someone starts choosing peace over potential, they are already halfway gone. They are no longer asking, why did this happen? Now they are asking, why did I stay so long? And that question changes everything. It turns pain into perspective. It turns heartbreak into wisdom. It turns love into a lesson. They are beginning to see the truth clearly. Love should not feel like constant confusion. Care should not feel like emotional survival. Loyalty should never require self-destruction. They gave too much. Too much patience. Too much understanding. Too many chances. And somewhere in all of that, they forgot to protect themselves. Now they are remembering. Now they are rebuilding. Piece by piece. Boundary by boundary. They are learning that closure does not always come from someone else. Sometimes closure comes from finally accepting what actions have been saying all along. That acceptance hurts. Because it means admitting that maybe you were not fighting for this the way they were. Maybe they were holding on to a future while you were already letting go. That truth is heavy. But it is also freeing. Because once illusions break, people stop waiting for miracles. And that is exactly what is happening. They are no longer waiting for you to become who they hoped you were. They are accepting who you chose to be. That acceptance is the beginning of freedom. Now, when they hear your name, it still means something. But it no longer controls their mood. That is how healing begins. Quietly, not with forgetting, but with no longer bleeding from the memory. They are smiling again, sleeping a little better, laughing without forcing it. And for the first time in a long time, they are imagining a future that does not depend on your return. That should tell you everything. Because when someone stops building their future around you, you are no longer their home. You are becoming their past. Still, there is one final space in their heart. A small place where honesty could still matter. A place where truth could still make a difference. But that space is shrinking. Every day. Every silence. Every excuse. Every moment you choose pride over clarity. It becomes smaller. And once it disappears, so does the possibility of us. Because forgiveness needs something to hold on to. Trust needs effort to survive. And love, no matter how strong, cannot grow in uncertainty forever. They are not angry like before. That phase is ending. Now they are calm. And sometimes calm is more dangerous than rage, because calm means they have stopped expecting, stopped hoping, stopped waiting. So if you still believe this connection matters, understand this. You are no longer trying to fix a fight. You are trying to reach someone who is learning how to live without you. And if they succeed, your apology may arrive to a heart that has already moved on. Because some endings do not happen in one moment. They happen slowly, through silence, through absence, through the repeated feeling of being unchosen. Until one day, the person who once begged for your attention looks at you with peace and no longer needs anything from you at all. And now, the most painful part has arrived. They have stopped explaining their silence. They have stopped waiting for you to notice. They have stopped hoping that one day, without being asked, you would finally understand what they were feeling. Because after a while, people get tired of translating their pain for someone who keeps pretending not to see it. That exhaustion changes everything. They are no longer angry when your name appears. No longer anxious when your message is late. No longer losing sleep trying to understand what went wrong. That emotional storm has started becoming still, and peace after pain feels strange. At first, they thought healing would feel like happiness. But it doesn't. Sometimes healing feels like emptiness. Like looking at someone you once loved deeply and realizing they no longer have the same power over your heart. That realization is quiet, but it is life-changing. Because love is not only about passion. Sometimes love is simply who still affects your peace, and little by little you are affecting theirs less. That should make you pause. Because while you may think time is keeping the connection alive, time is actually teaching them how to survive without it. Every day they do not hear from you, they grow stronger in your absence. Every unanswered question becomes less important. Every memory loses a little more of its weight, and one day, what felt unforgettable becomes just another chapter. That is how people move on. Not suddenly, but slowly. So slowly that by the time you notice, they are already gone emotionally. Right now, they are learning something powerful. That closure is not a conversation. Closure is a decision. A decision to stop waiting. A decision to stop reopening wounds. A decision to stop giving emotional access to someone who never protected their heart. That decision is forming inside them, and once it becomes final, it is hard to undo. Because people can return to love, but they rarely return to disrespect. They can forgive mistakes, but they do not easily forget repeated neglect. That difference matters. They still care. Yes, that truth has not disappeared. But caring and choosing are not the same thing. You can love someone and still decide they are no longer safe for your peace. That is maturity. That is self-respect. And they are finally learning both. Sometimes they look back and ask, if they came back right now, would I even believe them? That question scares them because the answer is no longer simple. Before, they would have run back without hesitation. Now, trust would need proof. Words would need consistency. Love would need effort. And not temporary effort. Real effort, because they have learned the hardest lesson. Someone can love you and still hurt you. Someone can miss you and still choose not to fight for you. Someone can say forever and still leave when things become inconvenient. That lesson made them stronger, but it also made them harder to reach. Now they protect what they once gave freely. Their time, their trust, their softness. Because not everyone deserves access to the most honest parts of a person. And they learned that because of you, maybe unintentionally, maybe carelessly. But the lesson stayed. Now they are standing in front of the mirror, and for the first time, they are choosing themselves without guilt. That is powerful. That is rare. And once someone truly learns that, they stop chasing people who made them question their worth. So before you assume there will always be another chance, remember this. Sometimes the final goodbye does not sound like goodbye. Sometimes it sounds like silence. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it feels like someone smiling politely, while emotionally, they have already let you go. And when that happens, love is not what decides the ending anymore. Self-respect does.